You're listening to the Flourish Mindset, where we talk to entrepreneurs and discover their successes, their failures, and their secrets to winning at business. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Flourish Mindset. With me today, I have Kayla Nayes with Enlightened Beauty, and she's here to share with us her story and how she got where she is, and also what she has going on for the future. So welcome, Kayla.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited about this, but why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you got into your own salon? Why did you start your own versus like renting a booth or working with one of the companies in town?
Yeah, I actually did a little bit of everything. When I first started out, I ended up going to beauty school 2 months after I graduated high school. I always knew I wanted to be in this industry. It was just really bad timing. I started in 2008 and graduated in 2009, and that's kind of what the whole crash happened. So people were pinching pennies, and it was hard to find a job. I remember interviewing at, I don't even know, probably about 10 different salons, and they were all, where's your experience? And I'm like, oh, I just graduated. And they're like, no, we need somebody with experience or clientele. So it was very hard to kind of find something. I did get a call back from one of the interviews, and it was a retirement home in Moorhead, so built-in clientele.
Right.
So that was good for getting started, and I still worked side jobs and things like that. But a couple of years into that, I'm like, I need something more than perms and shampoo sets.
Right.
So I looked into Fargo because I had gotten licensed in Minnesota to work at that job. And so I used my North Dakota license, found a public job, and started working with more of a public clientele. Did that for about 4 years, opened up my own booth, did that for a couple years. And I just always knew there was more, like I wanted more. And then I hired on my first employee in 2018. And then we were commission and tipping when we first started out, just like the common way to have a salon is. It just didn't ever feel right. It's very competitive in salons, and that's kind of how it's always been. So I just started researching different things, and I found Strategies Coaching. They're out of Connecticut, and I loved everything about it. So I borrowed some money from Dakota Business Lending, and I took off to Connecticut and spent 4 days in their incubator and learned all about how to convert my salon from the commission tipping structure into non-tipping hourly wage.
Wow.
And that's what I did over COVID. It was a perfect opportunity to rip the Band-Aid off and reopen as a non-tipping hourly wage salon. So we're different that way.
And how has the response been for that with both your staff and with clients?
Yeah, so right when we did it, it actually kind of was easy just because people had been waiting for 2 months to get in with the COVID shutdown.
Right.
So that was really good. And then after like the kind of initial like hustle bustle everything, it started to get interesting as far as like COVID, what we believed in for our team, and then what the lady I was renting the booths from, like our what am I trying to say? Like what we thought about the mask wearing and different things like that. And because we were in a booth rental salon, and I had just rented booths as I hired on employees, it started to get kind of messy, and we needed our own space for our own culture.
Right.
So I just kind of stayed open, kind of looked around town. I knew that it was probably going to be a big move, and funny enough, next door, TaylorMade barber, Leanne and Brendan are amazing. She called and said, we're going to move, we're going to expand. And I was like, oh, is this a second location? She's like, no, we just need someone to take over our lease. It was literally sharing our wall.
Wow.
So we took it. We borrowed some more from Dakota Business Lending. It took about 4 months to complete the entire project, but we moved in. We have our own space now, our own suite.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a good amount of questions for you
Yeah.
regarding that. So I think you're one of the first people who have come on and started really talking about borrowing money.
Yeah.
A lot of people kind of do the bootstrap method, right? Like you just pick yourself up and go buy your bootstraps, or once you've had enough, side business income to like make it your full thing,
Yeah.
or have enough money in your bank account. But there aren't a lot of people who talk about the business lending process. So tell me how that was, how it was working with the Dakota Business Lending company. It's not a company, it's a program.
Yeah.
But like, how did that all happen for you?
So basically, I just did my own research and different things like that. Money is not my like forte, lending, banking, any of that. I mean, I'm a cosmetologist, I'm an artist. So I really just had to kind of go out there and ask. I had my personal bank account with Gate City Bank, so I started there. And they're very, you know, with banks, it's all about your credit score and your credit history and where you're at with all of that. I didn't have any equity except for my car. I had very little saved up, and so it was kind of like a lot of closed doors, a lot of no's. And then I just kind of, I'm trying to think of how I found out about Dakota Business Lending, because they're almost like a gap financer. They're an amazing company. I know now. I went through the Small Business Association up on 19th Avenue. That's the incubator building. I went to a couple SBA classes, and I met Steve, and he's the president of Dakota Business Lending. And that's how it all started. He's the one that got me that first little bit of money to get myself to the Connecticut, figure all that out, and then he also financed the huge remodel.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you spent time in an incubator in Connecticut and here in Fargo.
Yeah.
That's investing in yourself. And
Yeah.
I mean, one cost you probably a good amount of money to get all the way out there and spend the time and be away from your business, so you're not building it.
Yeah.
How did you determine that it was worth the investment? And tell me a little bit about how it has paid off for you.
Yeah. I think that my mind is curious constantly. So I always know that there's stuff for me to learn. And I've had a lot of people say, you know, like, that's a waste of money, personal development, blah, blah, blah. I've invested so much time and money into personal development and business development, but it's always paid off for me. So I know I have a lot of, I've had past team members, I've had family, I've had friends, you know, say, you know, you spend a lot of money on these different things. It could be invested in other things. But it's really built the foundation of what I'm creating too. And I know slow and steady is going to win the race. So
Right.
That's kind of where I come from with that.
I love it. I think that investing in yourself and in your business is so incredibly important, especially when it's creating opportunities for growth.
Yes.
Just because if you're not, like, where are you coming with your new ideas? Where are you coming up with your new foundations for things or original foundations for things?
Yeah.
How are you coming up with your processes? And if you're closing your doors off to all of that, there is no room for growth. You've closed off your doors for growth.
Right. Yep.
So I think it's so cool that you've found that out, and you see it's like a history, right? History writes itself, and you can see people who have invested in like learning and development and things like that. Those are the ones who are successful. It's the ones who are like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
It doesn't pay off in the long run, but you can't just invest in it. You actually have to like act on it, right?
That's the problem too. So for the first couple of years, I was very much into like book clubs and reading and all those different things, but it wasn't until I started to implement some of the tools and the knowledge that I had gained that stuff started to really take off. So yeah.
Cool. So what got you interested in hair and that avenue of business?
I always wanted to make people feel better. That's kind of where it always came from. I remember I grew up in a very small town, and there were even like a couple people. We had, I think, 2 local salons in town, and if they were full, they were full. So people would have to go to Fargo or wherever to get hair and makeup done. And I was like, well, I know I'm not like a professional, but I could do your hair. So I even did that in school for prom and things like that. And I don't know, I just always loved it. I love curling my grandma's hair, doing all of that. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So going from an entrepreneur owning your own business to being a business owner where you're not only owning your business, but now you have employees, typically there's a lot of lessons learned early on, especially with your first hires. Can you talk to me maybe a little bit about some of those lessons you learned?
Absolutely, yeah. It's very interesting because it was a very hard last year. 2021 was almost like the breakdown, and then we're kind of rising up from the ashes, it feels like right now. COVID taught me a lot of what I can do under pressure. We got a lot of things done, a lot of things changed. I actually even won a best turnaround award for that company that I'm a part of with strategies coaching, because of all the work we had put in for the 2 months we were shut down. But when the dust kind of settled with our remodel and all of those things, the team that I had originally built everything with from the ground up decided to go off on their own. So it was me and my front desk manager that I had hired, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know where we're gonna go with this, but we're gonna figure it out.
Right.
It ended up being where my younger sister, she was the manager of a spa in town. She decided that she wanted to come over, and it was a lot of let's see if this is gonna work type of thing, because she's my sister. And it was like, I don't want you to be a part of the team feeling like you need to save your sister. In the company, it's more like, this is my goal, these are my dreams, does that align with you? And it's been great. She has brought over so much skin knowledge and all of that. And then May, we had a beautiful woman walk in. She had walked out of her previous salon job and said, I need somewhere else, and I researched, and you feel like you're in alignment with me, will you hire me? And I'm like, do you want to fill out an application? And she's like, can I do it here? I'm like, yeah. So that's our team right now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just 4 of us, and we're just kind of building out what we need to right now, and we know we're going to be hiring sometime in this year. We just don't know when.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's a scary time when, people are very, you're very reliant on other people's services to make your income or your company's income. And then figuring out a way to support your staff if, let's say, there's a drop in sales because of whatever reason. So those are definitely scary times, and I love that you open yourself up to opportunities that maybe seems a little bit abnormal, but it worked out really well for you. So that's awesome. So how do you keep yourself open? I mean, it seems like you've had a few of those situations where an opportunity just presents itself. So how do you keep yourself open so that those things can present themselves to you?
I try to remember that when every door closes, another one opens. It's very hard when you're in the midst of it to get to that point, but I believe in meditation. I believe in taking the time for myself. Like today, I just came from an all-day trade day with my girls. We like to invest in ourselves too and take care of each other so we can show up the best we can. I think that's the whole premise of Enlightened Beauty too, is we don't have to give all of our energy away to everybody all the time and deplete ourselves. We can give some of that back to ourselves too. And that's kind of where the hourly wage came into too. It's like the commission and the tipping, it was so competitive, and it never created a really team culture in anywhere that I had worked before. And this way we can. If somebody cancels that had, a balayage haircut, manicure, she was gonna have a day of beauty or whatever, my staff still gets paid, and we can afford benefits because we know what the payroll is going to be every couple of weeks. So it's a different way, yes, but it really works for us. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You had someone come in because they liked how you were doing things. So how did you go about setting maybe your mission or your vision on what you wanted to do and what your culture was going to look like so that you could attract the right type of people?
I think it was strategies, honestly, that helped us realize how important it was to get everything down on paper. Not only as something as simple as like an employee handbook and what's expected of a person coming in on the team, but also what we provide and what our goal and mission is. At Enlightened Beauty, we want to make sure everyone feels safe, staff, guests, everyone. So we are very all-inclusive. Which is very different for our area too, and we definitely advertise that way. Most of the people, all of the people on our staff are neurodivergent in one way, shape, or another. And we really kind of honor that in each other and know that we're all different, but that's okay. And it's like, how can we work together and still succeed when we have these differences? So
I love it. You have seen the ups and downs now. I mean, going from one recession into another time of potential recession, slight recession, increased inflation, everything like that. So how have you really built your business so that, like, as we go through these times, maybe every day isn't a stressful day for you?
it's doing what we can with what we have. I think sometimes when we see blocks and schedules, it's a little scary, but it's also like, how can we have fun and get on social media and kind of advertise who we are? So we kind of go back to that. We do a lot of like team-based culture kind of posts and things like that of like, this is how we work together, this is what we do on the daily. We do a lot of things as far as investing in the team too. So like last October at the beginning, we went to Chicago. We had a road trip.
Fun.
We went there for 3 days, and that was the strategies. They have like a yearly conference that they used to have. The last one was 2019, and they just had their first one again last October. So that was super fun. And of course, we shared our trip and what we all learned from that too. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about your marketing, because obviously marketing has changed over the years.
Yeah.
I think about like in 2008, I was working at a car dealership, and I know what marketing looked like, and I was like the pro at Facebook. And there was Foursquare and Facebook. MySpace again, I just phased out.
Yeah.
But there was no Instagram, Snapchat, any of that. So how has your marketing, especially since you're client-facing business, shifted and adjusted over the years to meet the needs of your clientele and or reach the biggest impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of playing around. We were very inconsistent actually with our social media before 2021, when I basically had my company walkout. We had a friend of ours who really loves social media stand up and say, she took me out to lunch one day actually and asked if she could do my social media, and I was like, yeah, awesome. So we just worked out a payment plan for her. Like we paid her a couple times a month, almost like an independent contractor, and she did a post a day, and it's been amazing. Now she's off onto bigger and better things. So March 1st, she's handing over the reins to us, and we're taking it over.
Exciting.
It is exciting, and she's actually kind of shown us like all the different things we can do, and she's educating us, and it's been a really cool shift. But I think for us, Instagram and Facebook have been the number one things to use, especially because we're not hugely tech savvy. So like TikToks and what am I trying to think of? Snapchat and things like that. We really just don't stay consistent with those two.
Right.
So we've focused on the reels on Instagram have been huge, and then we kind of connected to our Facebook too. So it's all together.
Love it. That's definitely one of those things. It's like back in the day, you could post from time to time and just make it fun, and you're good enough. Yeah. And now it's so important that you're consistent in every piece that you post, and then along with the consistency is authenticity, right?
Yes.
And being authentic to who your company and what your mission is with your posting. Yep. And that's how you attract your staff and your clients and everything. And so I love it. So tell me a little bit more about like some of those people or whether they're famous people or people in your life that have like really motivated you or really made a big impact in your world and how you created your business.
Well, and early on in my childhood, I didn't have the greatest upbringing. My great grandpa was probably the first person that was like, you want to do something, do it. Like, don't let anybody tell you no. And kind of everyone else was like, oh my gosh, Harry, you're not going to make any money in hair. Don't do that. Go to business school. And I did go to business school. It did nothing for me.
Maybe it helps you run your business a little bit now.
A little bit, but it was like it's experience. Like honestly, the degree that I have, I'm like, I could have just opened up my business and learned along the way, because that's what I'm still doing.
Right.
But yeah, my great grandpa, I think he was the first one that was like, if you want to do something, you can do it. And then as I got into industry and everything, I think watching Jill and Jody Cron as the local kind of business people in town, they are the ones that opened up the Salon Professional Academy. That's where I went to school. And then I came back as an instructor for a few years back in 2016 until about 2018, where I had to focus solely on my salon. But I love teaching. I love educating. I thought it was so cool that they made a huge brand like that and worked hard to get there. And that was kind of my first inspiration of like, maybe I can do this too. I mean, they were just 2 girls from Ada, Minnesota that did this. Maybe I can do that too. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean, that kind of goes into what you're working on next, what the future looks like. So like, what is your vision on what that looks like?
Yeah, I think that the whole franchise thing is attractive to me in the way of being able to provide these good, stable jobs in an economy where stylists and hair is, it's kind of hard to get into right now, or scary, because you don't know what kind of consistency is going to come from it, if anything. And with the hourly wage and the way we run things, I think it's more appealing for stylists to be able to have that work-life balance and be able to have benefits and things like that. So the goal is to have a franchise with Enlightened Beauty, but always making sure that we stick to our authentic selves and make sure that we want a very small space. So we'll never have a salon over 10 people. We've always kind of went back to that. If it ever gets to be that big, open up the next location. I think we've all been in spaces where bigger is better is what salons are kind of like,
Right.
and the culture gets a little bit not as good when you get that big, and it doesn't feel like a family anymore. It kind of feels like you're a number, and that's when it gets messy.
So we do find that, like, you know, when you have more people, you can offset your costs a little bit more.
Yeah.
So opening in a second space, you're looking at another occupancy cost, you know, administrative costs, things like that. So how do you find that balance, or do you already in your mind at least have a calculation of what income needs to look like per space before you hire on?
Yeah, definitely. The strategies, it's a well-known coaching company, but they have, we pay for the services that they have, but it is years and years of experience in spreadsheeting. It's like a no-brainer for me. I can type in my numbers and I can figure out what it's gonna look like in a year. I can look at 5 years ahead. I can do hypotheticals. It's really fun, but of course I can do all of that work, and we have to put in the work to get there. So
Right.
it can show us the path, but we have to do the things to get us there. So yeah.
Well, I think that's super important too, though. But like knowing your numbers, there's so many entrepreneurs that like one of the biggest mistakes, right? It's just like, well, I think I can do this, so I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And they don't actually know what it's gonna cost them to do it. You know, breaking that down to how many heads of hair are they gonna cut, or how many services are they gonna need to offer to get to that spot. You know, how many but like how many each stylist can do, transactions can a stylist do per month, and what does that equate to? And like when you know those numbers, then you can know what your future looks like.
Exactly.
So was it your coaching company, or did you kind of already kind of get a feel for that, and then your coaching company just helped you like really fine tune it?
Yeah, I was frustrated because I'm like, okay, there's a way to do this. I know there is, but I don't know what it is. So that's when I started just kind of diving into everything. I went down a huge rabbit hole on Google, and I found strategies. And they really, I was like, this is it. This was the missing link for me all along. I know what my cost per hour is. I know exactly what payroll is going to be every 2 weeks. I know how I can build in raises when I can. It's simple. It made it all very simple for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's another part of this is entrepreneurs, no matter what you are doing, or business owners, no matter what you're doing, whether it's house sales or care sales or accounting or, you know, a boutique, you need to know how much each thing's going to cost you, but you also need to be well-rounded enough to be able to know how to track your numbers or find the right people to do it. Because when you start a business, you can't just be like, oh, I'll figure it out as I go.
Right.
Or I'll hire the right people, because you need to know what kind of questions to ask.
Yep.
You need to know how to align yourself with the right types of people, all of that. So was it a lot of trial and error for you, or was it observations from other companies before you jumped into that field?
I think a little of both. I mean, when I was booth renting, it was very much on my own. I didn't go into a bank and get a loan. I had saved up some money, and I used that to open up a booth. So when I started to kind of want to scale faster than what I could bring in myself, that's when I'm like, okay, how do people do this? So that's when I started looking into it, and that's Dakota Business Lending held my hand in the way of like, okay, so you want to borrow this much, what are you using it for? Kind of give us a play-by-play, almost like a smaller version of a business plan, where you're kind of mapping out what you want to do, and then they're like, okay, this is how much it would be a month. Is that something that you can afford? If not, we have to think about what else we can do. So they were really, really nice that way, and I really liked working with them over the banks, because they were just more open to, okay, what is your goal and how do you want to get there? Because there's different ways. You can either kind of hone in on what you have here and get this really solid, or you can scale, and it's just kind of what you want to do at any given time. And I'm like, I want to scale.
Right.
So yeah, it's been fun. It's been an adventure.
Well, that's awesome. Are there any lessons that you've learned that you feel like if someone's looking at moving from renting their own booth to like actually opening their own salon, that they should know?
Get a really good accountant. Ask friends that are in the industry. I was lucky that I found a really good booth renter accountant, and she helped us so well when it was just a couple of us. Once I got to that bigger side, I think the most we had on our team was 6 of us total. It started to get a little bit much for her specifically, so I had to shift and I had to go to another accountant, which I'm not hugely loving my accountant right now. I think we're gonna make another shift also, but I think that's okay. It's just knowing like, okay, if you're not getting what you need out of a certain company or a certain person on your team, because really they are a part of your team indirectly, you can switch.
Right.
You can change. So
You don't need to be like, I mean, loyalty is good, but like, yeah, if it's not doing what you need to do,
Yeah.
you have to, for the better of your business and the better of the people that you work with,
Yep.
to find what you need.
Yeah.
Love it. What have you, like, what do you read? What do you study? What podcasts do you listen to?
Podcast, Glennon Doyle, I've been addicted to for so long now. We Can Do Hard Things.
Love it.
So I watch that, or I listen to that one all the time, and I'm an Audible freak. I think I have like 3 books I'm reading right now. I'm listening to Profit First.
Oh, yep, good one.
That's amazing. We actually have all the accounts now, so it's been really fun to see all those grow. I would definitely recommend that for people who are in that area where you're kind of spinning plates money-wise and you don't know exactly where you should put your tax money and your owner's compensation and all of those different things. It's amazing. One of the things one of the books I read that was really, really good, and I listened to this multiple times with Audible and with the book because it just helps me, but it's Spirit Means Business by Alan Cohen. That was huge. And then Brene Brown, anything by her. But also
Yes.
the biggest one that helped me with my team before COVID, so it changed a lot afterwards. I should probably read it again, but it's Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. That workbook too is really, really amazing to go through.
In the workbook, so
Yeah.
check it out. Yeah, I think as a leader, sometimes we have to feel like we put this face on all the time, right? And everything's okay, and I got this, and I'm like a little prideful in that I got this. The ego comes out,
Yeah.
and becoming vulnerable and like letting your team and your colleagues see that is so important.
Yeah.
Because then they feel like they're more connected to you, they can lift
Yep.
you up, and you guys can travel on that vision and mission together as opposed to
Yeah.
you versus the world.
Yeah, well, and I think that team-based structure too has really helped that way of like, we're all equals. Right now, I work in the business just as much as everybody on the team, which I was at the point before the little bit of change within our company where I was having one day, like more of like a working on the business, not in it.
Right.
And I've had to kind of step back into the role of being there to take customers right now. But I think when we all kind of do the same things, and I'm not like, well, this is something that only I do. It's letting everybody see the whole picture, financials, everything, and saying like, okay, this is where we are. This is where all the money is going, and this is what we want to get to for our goal. So let's all work together and get there. The open book policy was super scary for me at first, and I can't picture it any other way now.
I love it. Transparency is really important.
Yeah.
So people aren't feeling like you're tricking them in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. So you've talked a little bit about having the right accountant because they're part of your team, and you've talked about coaching. Are there any other people who are not technically on your team but on your team?
My husband, all the way. He's basically a business owner, even though he's not. I mean, he has to hear everything that I go through all the time, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So definitely my husband, he's like my right hand everything. My family, it's crazy because of how we grew up to where we're at now. I mean, my sisters and I have been through so much therapy and different things with our different things that we dealt with as children. But I think I have a lot of people in that realm, kind of more mental health wise too, that have helped me along the way, therapists. I've got a couple of guests that are actually in that world too that have helped me a lot. And yeah, I can't believe that I've already been in the industry for 14 years. It's crazy how fast time goes.
It really does. Every year it goes faster, I think.
Yeah.
Love it. So would you suggest that people should be getting some kind of business coach or mentor or something like that? Is there a way that you go about finding that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think that maybe some people have the knowledge and can do things on their own, maybe, but for me, I needed someone to kind of paint a picture and help me get to where I wanted to go. Back in 16, I went to my first mastery retreat. It was out of Lake Tahoe. It was a 4-day event, and that is what took off my career. And it was hard. It was a lot of emotional, mental, spiritual work, but it was really good, and I found out what I wanted out of my career and out of life, and I've never really looked back. With that, that kind of fell in my lap, so maybe just stay open is what I would say to different things coming your way, and don't close yourself off to anything because it can just come out of nowhere. I had a friend of mine go, I know you're kind of thinking maybe about quitting the industry, but maybe you should go to this. And it was called Business Trifecta, and I went to that 2-day class, and that's when I signed up for the mastery retreat. So it was meant to be, and that was the SSI agency, but I mean, and that's specifically for the salon and spa industry.
Sure.
And so it's strategies, but I know there's so many different things out there.
Oh yeah, there's tons of coaches and consultants and stuff. I absolutely love that. I think that going on those kinds of retreats is really important because it's allowing you to surround yourself with people in the same industry, share your struggles and your wins together, feel like you are being heard because they're in the exact same situations, they've been through the same things, they've succeeded in the parts that you're failing in, and you can pick their brains and everything like that. And if you can just take one piece of information from each one of those, if it's only one, but keep your brain open to what that one piece could be, and then enact on that one piece, and then maybe enact on another piece of it later. But I don't think people realize how much investing in yourself and these events and things like that can really impact the way you do your business.
Yes, and those group activities, like you were saying, you learn so much from other people's experiences because they may be similar, but they're so different, and you can figure out what happened with their team culture or how they got back on their feet once they fell down, and it's really cool.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we're actually running out of time already. It just flies by every time. Is there anything you want to leave the guests with?
I don't think so. I think if you're wanting to start your own business, I say go for it, map it all out, brainstorm. And then take baby steps. I think that we have a lot of really, really awesome local places that you can go to get started. The Small Business Association up at NDSU up there was the first place for me. Dakota Business Lending has an amazing new program. That's the entrepreneur something district, I think they're calling it. I also got involved with the Women's Business Center, and I did a leadership retreat last year, and that was really cool. So I think stay open to investing in yourself, because if you invest in yourself, then you can give back and do more. So
absolutely love it. Yeah. And if anyone wants to come visit you at your salon, it's Enlightened Beauty, and you're located by Randy's Diner.
Yep, so we're right off of I-94 and University, right kind of tucked behind the University, Randy's Diner, and the Petro Serve right there. There's actually a strip mall hidden back there, and we're the little hidden gem in the strip mall.
Love it. And if you are tuning in online and not watching the YouTube video, Kayla's hair is phenomenal. It is rainbow colors. So if you're looking for a good salon in town that can really cater to the fun hairstyles and a little bit of the chaos, I think she'd be a great fit for you.
Yes, we can definitely get that down. We do everything though. I mean, we have our oldest client just turned 82 Our youngest client is 4 years old, so we do everybody in between too. So
Love it.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you guys for joining in. You've been listening to the Flourish Mindset. Don't forget to subscribe and follow so you don't miss a single episode.